Hi, guys. Today I have Kelly on the podcast. I am super excited for our conversation. Kelly, can you introduce yourself to everyone?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here, Manali. It's such a pleasure. I am Kelly Trach. I am a four-time entrepreneur. I am a business coach, and I am the published author of a little book called An Unconventional Guide to Finding Your Innate Gifts, Even When You Feel You Have None. So that's my little bio and a synopsis. And I found Manali, I feel like 2 years ago, on the Instagram Explore page.
Mm,
And that's how
yeah,
the
I know.
universe connected us.
Crazy. I know.
So,
Crazy. I have loved, I had been following on for a little bit, read your book, loved it. And it was so crazy because Kelly reached out to me and I was like, oh my gosh, published author. Kelly is reaching out to me. And we had just a great conversation over Zoom. And I was like, you know what? I would love to have you on the podcast because I feel like you just are such a breath of fresh air and loved your book, loved your message. And I feel like the podcast audience is going to get a lot out of this conversation. So I'm gonna dive right in. You
yeah.
mentioned you have a book called P.S. You're a Genius. I loved reading it. Like you have such a great voice. I feel like how you speak translates very much so into the pages of your book, but it's also such a great guide of helping people really figure out what their thing is. Because even as somebody, I've been doing photography for a long time, but I have struggled to be like, that is my zone of genius. Or figuring out what that special sauce that you have. That's so hard to pinpoint for yourself, but I feel like your book does a really, really good job of it. So I wanted to ask, can you share with the audience what a zone of genius is to begin with if they haven't heard of that concept before?
Yeah, so the way I describe your genius in my own framework and teachings is I call it like it's the work that only you can do in the world. And I believe that when you take your top 3 to 5 most innate gifts and perform a task doing all of them at once, you create this world class outcome doing something only you can do. I like to differentiate gifts from strengths because there's so much speak around find your strengths. But if you're anything probably like us, you are good at many things and you're
Hmm.
multi-talented and multi-passionate. But I feel like I like to separate the two and I kind of define gifts as what you are innately gifted at. Like, what are those top gifts? And in the book, I kind of go through 10 questions to figure out those gifts that you could just do on the spot with no preparation or effort, stuff that's easy and natural for you. And you don't have to try to be better at them or like sharpen the saw proverbially. You're like already
Hmm.
amazing at it. So when you take and find those top 3 to 5 gifts, for example, mine are teaching, speaking, creating, connecting, and you do tasks that are in alignment with all of them. So for me, that's like doing a podcast interview or working with a client or hosting a workshop or running a webinar or teaching a course. That's when I feel like I'm creating like a genius outcome. I feel really in the flow. I feel alive. I feel like I'm creating something that's amazing. I'm having fun. I'm getting paid to do it. It's of course still work and effort, but it's got this flow and this quality of ease and a dimension of fun to it. And that's what we're aiming for. So that's kind of how I describe your genius is finding your top 3 to 5 most innate gifts and performing a task that involves all of them at once to create something only you can uniquely do.
How long did it take you to realize that these 3 to 5 things were your thing? And then how did you take that and then build your business from it as well of honoring those gifts?
Yeah, so many moons ago, after business school, I went to one of Canada's most competitive business schools. I was like, I got in on full scholarship, did all the things. And I turned down my job offers after business school to move to Silicon Valley to build my own tech startup. And all my 3 tech startups failed. And then I had this profound question that came to me from my intuition of what if you just did what you were good at, which was so opposite to how I live my life of hustle, grind, the hardest challenge. Like, you can't code, but let's try to build a tech startup. And at the time I had started off doing the only thing I really knew. And at the time I was like, hey, Malcolm Gladwell has a 10,000 hours concept. What am I really good at? And all I really knew was like managing my autoimmune condition and my celiac and my IBS. And I started off with a blog and like a website. And I started making my first course on mindset and I had ebooks and people started asking me, hey, Kelly, can you build something for me? Can you help me build a business online? And I initially said, no, I don't do that anymore. I was like, that's the old me. That was old Kelly Trach, went to business school, had the startups, none of that worked. I was so in this new identity, but I got so many requests for it. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll do one. I'll help one person build an online business. Um, Anyways, long story short, fast forwarding 5 years or 5 years later, that's what I do now full time, teaching people how to build businesses and what I've been doing probably, for the last 5 years online. But people would come to me And I always get, and even still, people are like, I have this sort of a vague idea or this vague vision
Mhm.
or these skills. Help me turn this into a business. Help me turn this into something to sell. So I started
Mhm.
asking them these little kind of unconventional questions to tease out and pull out their gifts and starting to see what they were uniquely good at. And then I'd start packaging up these gifts into offerings and services. So it's like, okay, cool. Based on what you're telling me, I'd be like, these are like your top 3 to 5 gifts, and you're interested in these things. Let's mush it all together. Like, for
Mhm.
example, I get clients who are like, I'm great at listening, I'm very sensitive, I'm very creative, and I love coaching or guiding or mentoring. And it's like, cool. Have we ever considered doing like career coaching or like life coaching? And then with this
Mhm.
focus on helping other people similar to you that are maybe more like sensitive and creative and introverted. And it's just, it's like taking what you're best at and taking what you're interested in and mixing it all together is how I would describe it. But I really, to be honest, bumped into this by accident. So once I kind of had developed it with clients, and I took it to one of my signature course called Your Conscious Empire, and I one of the key pieces in that course is how do you build a business online from A to Z was a module called Find Your Genius and Monetize It. And once I started getting a lot of recurring feedback of this was really helpful for me, I'm
Mhm.
able to make packages and between clients and course students who've been able to quit full-time jobs or out earn corporate salaries. One of my clients handed in her resignation letter within like 6 weeks of working with me and finding her genius and building out these packages that were so unique to her, or other clients who had like booked paid speaking gigs at Google within 1 month of opening up shop. Like it was kind of all these very kismet special outcomes. And I was like, oh, I've got something
Mhm.
here. And that's when I first realized, wait a second, I got like a little framework and it actually
Uh-huh.
works.
Yeah.
And then, anyways, long story, I tried to pitch it for a TED Talk. I didn't get it. So I took it and tried to pitch it as a book. And then I got the book through a lot of rejection, but I ended up getting the book. And then, yeah,
Mhm.
now it's a book. And now it's a framework people can use as well to figure out how to build a business around your genius. But also, you could take it and figure out how to build a career or a side hustle or something that matters to your heart in the world.
Yeah, I love hearing this story too of there were so many points too where you're like, you could have just stopped there. Or even with, okay, like you wanted to have it turn into a TED Talk, didn't get that, and then decided to let's just try pitching it as a book and came across a lot of rejections. But like eventually, like you found the publisher, right? And
Yeah.
now it's a book that's out in the world. And I loved how you didn't let anything kind of like stop you. You just kept with the idea and kept going with it. And I really admire the resilience because it's so easy to be like, okay, well, this person said no, so I'm just gonna table it. Yeah.
Yeah, because I pitched it to over 200 literary agents. It just took forever. And it
Mhm.
was one of those things. I think it's like with any kind of dreamer, I'm sure you've resonated with it too. Like when you just, I don't know, you have a dream, you're like, this has to happen. I don't know if you have
Mhm.
any dreams like that where you're like, I have to do it because there's no other option other than this being in the world is a real thing.
Mhm. Yeah, that's how I felt with taking my photography business full time. I was like, on paper, I might seem a little crazy, but like I know it's going to work. Like I
Yeah.
know that I have what it takes. Like I just need the time and I know it's going to work out. And so I feel like that's how
Yeah.
I felt with that too. So I totally
Yeah.
resonate. And so I was going to ask you, can you dive a little bit deeper? I know that you have this framework that's outlined in the book, which I highly recommend everyone goes and reads because it does like really take you step by step through like the framework of finding your zone of genius. But for people, can you give them a bit of a high level overview of kind of just how they can find like and package up their zone of genius to use the right business strategy or come up with the right types of offers that are going to be so unique because they are built out of what makes them unique.
Totally. Yeah. I think that's always one of the most important things with offers is like the difference between, I always think it's like building a house on the right foundation. It's like having a strong offer is so key and making sure that you are selling something that's very in alignment with your gifts, that's
Mhm.
easy for you to do, stuff that you're really uniquely good at. It's something where you read, and when you just read people's sales pages and you're like, holy moly, this person is so doing their thing and I
Mhm.
want this. Or this person's an expert. Like we all know when we see sales pages like that, we're like, whoa, yeah, I'm learning
Yeah.
from like the person who's going to coach me how to build a photography business, right? We all know what those
Mhm.
sales pages look like. So it's like, how can we build one for you in that sense? I think one of my favorite questions, and I started off as the first question in the book under the Find Your Gift section is, how do your idols reflect your genius? And this is one of the questions I always ask when I'm even consulting with people who want to come to me. I'm like, cool, you have a dream. who do you admire and what kind of businesses do they have? And if you could wave your magic wand, like what parts of these people's businesses would you want? I want a podcast like so-and-so, I want to do retreats so-and-so, or I want to have a course like so-and-so. But I like to think that what you like about others is also what you like about yourself. And sometimes the best reflection of your own gifts are the people you really admire and look up to. And it's like the universe's way of holding up a mirror to showcase back to what you're great at. So a really kind of like fast version, it's kind of like the quick and dirty version of my book, if I had to give it one question, is think about the top 5 people you admire, and then write down 5 reasons why you love each one of them. That will give you 25 traits total. And then if you look at that list of 25 traits, look at what comes up a lot. And there's a very good chance those 25 traits are all of your 25 best gifts. And it's like we're so drawn and magnetized to people that are expressing the gifts we have, or just are doing it but at a higher level. And what we like about people are different. For example, it's like you and I might love Oprah, but what we would like specifically about Oprah will be different and unique to our own gifts. You might be like, oh, she's an amazing listener, and that would reflect your gift of listening. Or I'd like, she's an amazing talker, and that might reflect like my gift of talking. You know what I mean? Or like one of those things. Like you might think, oh, she's a great writer, and it would reflect your gift of like writing, or something like that, essentially. But thinking about the top 5 people you admire and write down 5 reasons why you love each of them, and then also considering what they do for work and like how are they getting paid. I think that's a really great way of starting to monetize your genius and see what's available to you. Like in the sense of, do these people run membership sites? Are these people all on TV? Are these people all doing TikTok channels? Are these people doing self-study online courses? Or maybe if you're in a career setting, are these people all VPs at social enterprises? Or do they all work for nonprofits? Or are they all like creatives? They're all working as copywriters at ad agencies. But it can start to show you a very easy, clear-cut way of, here are some gifts that I have in myself based on what I see in other people that I really like. And based on what they're doing for work, I should probably take a little peek at how I could maybe do this too. The process of turning it into an offer is a little bit longer, and is the separate like 3-hour package I sell one-on-one, because it's a little bit more just like asking a million questions and then pulling an offer out of it from there. But as a high level approach, that's where I would start looking at like, what are these people? Who do I like? And then what are they selling? And how could I do this too?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I've never thought about the 5 people that I admire the most and the things that I admire about them. Like, to me, when I hear that, I'm immediately like, oh, I admire them because I don't have that innate gift or strength. But I'm realizing that, like, you're actually right in the sense that you probably do have that trait. It's just maybe something that you want to amplify, or that you want to be given permission almost to go all in with, or be known a little bit more for. So that's interesting, because very easy exercise, super tangible for somebody to like literally think about that as they're listening to the podcast right now. Like a great place to start. And then just, you know, like really looking at, okay, what are these people doing in order to make money? You don't have to start from scratch, and you source some ideas from there, and then really take it back to, again, like what comes naturally to you. So like maybe you are great at talking, but not so great at filming videos or something like that. So you know that you want to go more like the podcast route than video. But I think that's a great like high level overview of just kind of get started and really figure out like, what is it that makes you unique? Because I know that a lot of people will struggle with the question of, okay, like what is your unique value proposition? Like what sets you apart from other business owners? I know that was something that I struggled with, and the book and your process really helped me like package up what it was that was already within me. Just needed a couple of questions and a little bit of excavation. And turning to a little bit more of like the theme of the podcast, I wanted to ask you about how you have tackled things like perfection or self-doubt and fear, like combating those voices, like not letting the no's stop you from making forward progress in your business journey.
Yeah, for sure. I had so many, I think at the start, I had a lot of hangups for sure. I made one of the whole sections in the book. There's 4 sections in the book, and one of them is the doubts that hold you back. Because like I had so many of all of them. I'm not good enough. Other people are doing it better than me. I can't charge for this. If I do this, people are going to think less of me, like old coworkers and bosses. I need more time, more experience, for certifications. And then in the book, I break down tools for every one of those mindsets, because those were all ones that like plagued me and really bothered me. I think for me, I definitely felt I think most held back by fear of judgment. If I had to pick one of, especially, I feel like dropping an old identity. I went to business school, and all my friends were like literally my best friend. She graduated from Stanford, and she just made partner at A16Z, which is one of the most prestigious like VC firms in the Bay Area. And I see her, and oh my gosh, Joanna's like rocking it in life. And I have so many friends that are just brilliant folks. And then I was like, gee, here I am, like little like Trach, creative, a little bit weird, wants to go with the flow, build thingies online, prance around, make Instagram videos. I just felt really different than all my peers, and I always was worried that I would be met with a raised eyebrow and a lot of judgment from school peers or old professors that I really wanted approval from, or even when I would say what I did, when I would meet significant others as families or that kind of thing, or share what I did when I ran into old friends from high school who all had established careers. And I always felt like I was doing just different stuff than them. I was on a different life trajectory and different career and very creative and not linear. And I always, I think, felt weird about it. And I was very nervous to share what I was up to. Therefore, I would hide it a lot or not talk about it. I think the biggest way I've been able to get through that and be better at sharing myself and promoting myself and feeling confident about it is through realizing that people just didn't care as much as I thought. I share a story in the book about when I moved to the Bay Area after business school and turned down all my job offers and decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur and build a tech startup, which was so different than what I went to school for, to study like marketing and went to business school. I remember I shared a story of, I made this huge post on Facebook saying, hey, I've moved, like I'm in the Bay Area, I turned down all my job offers, and I shared like crazy on Instagram about me living in the Bay Area and my place in San Francisco, and nobody really realized that I was there. Like I'd run into folks all the time that I knew from my life, like acquaintances. It was almost comical because people would be like, hey, Kelly, what are you doing down here? Are you working here? Are you on holiday? And I was like, no, I'm starting a tech startup. And then it would be funny because I'd run into people literally every week. And they're like, what are you doing down here? And I'm like, oh, I'm, trying to build did you not see my post on Facebook? And they're like, oh, no. And only then did I realize that nobody was really keeping close tabs on me like I assumed. And that kind of gave me just a lot of permission to be like, if nobody really cares, then why am I wasting energy and time on this when I could just go after what I want? So that was a really freeing realization. Because, after 10 plus conversations that were all the same, I was like, oh, actually, only my most intimate, close circle really knows it, and nobody else seems to really care what I'm doing down here. So why not just go live my life versus being hooked on these people's opinions? Because like it can just keep you back so much based on these like random people in your life, like an old professor or an old roommate or an old boss, and what they quote unquote think of you versus them in reality probably not really thinking about you at all.
Yeah, I definitely can resonate because I always like when I'm doing something new, I'm a little unsure about and I'm like worried about if it's going to be met with judgment. Usually I can count off one hand the number of people who I'm like worried about their opinion. And it's very interesting because it's not close people to me.
Yeah.
It's not like people who would be staying in touch with what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's just been people who have maybe said something one off in a very random conversation years and years ago that has stuck with me a little bit for whatever reason. And it's coming to the realization of this person is probably not going to see what I'm doing anyway. It's just like, am I able to let that sense of judgment go? Because a lot of times I feel like fear is like this unnamed mass of people that you think is watching. But if you really think about it, it's like usually just a handful of people whose perception of you are actually worried about. But if you name them and do really think about, is this person actually closely watching what I'm doing? Maybe they are. Chances are they aren't. But that's always really freeing for me to breathe a sigh of relief, like, can let this go. Is my character also informed by what this one random person thinks of me? No, it's definitely more so like people who are very close to me, right? So I love that you brought that up because I definitely can resonate with that. And I'm sure there's a lot of people out there listening too who, when they think about it, are like, okay, yeah, of the things that are holding me back, it's probably fear of judgment. And okay, like knowing and hearing that people aren't really paying as close attention as you think they are is actually very freeing.
In terms of overcoming that fear of judgment, I think one of the biggest things I ground into now is more focusing on the positive responses and leaning into that. One of the things I always think about, I know for me, I'm such a purpose-driven person, and I really want to help and I really want to serve. I think so many of us that are called to entrepreneurship and making and doing things, it's yes, we love the art and the craft, but we're also like, we want to help people. And I find for me, whenever I take the focus off myself of I'm scared, I'm nervous, I'm afraid, or I'm worried about what people are going to think, and I put the focus on there are people out there that need me. There's people out there that need my service, need my offer, need my book. And I'll do it for them. I'll visualize some random girl on the other side of the globe who like really maybe might need my book. And I'm like, hey, if I'm being selfish, if I like hide away or slink away or I don't talk about my stuff, like I'm keeping my work away from the people that need it most. Or when I want to go to the voices of, oh, what's so-and-so going to think? Or if I would go back in time and look at younger Kelly Trach on the journey, I'd be like, think and root into any of those positive bits of feedback you get from that first client you helped or that person that you helped for free when you were just starting, and like be like, wow, I can help people, and like leaning into that and letting that guide you and pull you more. Because now whenever I focus or whenever I get in my head about the book or book marketing or stuffing, even if I'm my own hand, I'm like, oh, I'm promoting it too much, or here I am talking about it again. I think and like root into, oh, let me go read some Amazon reviews and remind myself that people actually appreciate this, and lean into that voice and that mindset. And then remember that like, yes, I want to help people and I'll do it for them. And somehow that's how I can get the emphasis off my own self, my own feelings and my own internal problems and like feeling nervous in my own head. Okay, I'll do it for them. I'm like, I'll do it for the reader. Like I can do it for them. Somehow I'll dig deep and find the courage, but that always works for me, is taking the emphasis off myself.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with that. I feel like that with podcast interviews a lot. I don't know what it is. Get so nervous before every single one, but I also have heard from people like, oh, this episode was super, super helpful. I'm so glad that you talked about X, Y, or Z. And so that I think is always something that I keep coming back to. And sometimes it helps for me to have, I call it my sunshine folder of, I will screenshot things from like clients or like students, just over the years it's been building up. So whenever I'm having a bit of like a rough day, or if I'm really stuck and like fearful or doubting myself, I'll just go back and read through that, because that definitely does get me out of, I'm stuck in my head because of all the self-doubt and all of this fear. But like, look at what you've done in the past. Look how it's really helped somebody. I'm sure there's so many other people out there who could really benefit from this too. So I love that you shared that tidbit, and I hope that's helpful for somebody listening in. If there's something that you're scared of doing, think about all the people that it could and will benefit too. So I love that.
Yeah, and I love the sunshine folder. I'm the same, where it's like my kellytrach.com/testimonials. That's sure it's for folks that want to potentially hire me, but I'm like, it's also for me. I'm like, I need to read this on a hard day, and I'll go read it. Like, right, I am good at what I do. Or like, I am a good coach. Or, yeah, I'm not stupid after all. You know what I mean? Like, I need it myself.
Yeah, no, it's definitely affirming. And I think it's really hard to like forget, or sorry, I think it's really easy to forget that sometimes in the day-to-day, or if you've had a particularly rough week, it's okay, let me zoom back out, let me look at all this proof that I do know what I'm doing and that I am capable.
Totally.
Sorry, but can you take us a little bit behind the scenes of your business? What projects are you up to? What has been creatively inspiring you lately?
Yeah, so lately, since this sort of springtime, I got hired on contract by Danielle Laporte, a very famous self-help spiritual author. So I have been doing a bunch of support around marketing and sales, like coming in, and yeah, they brought me on in a contract role where I essentially like was like, here are all my ideas for what you could be doing, marketing and sales wise, for one of her most popular online courses, and then implementing a bunch of my sales and marketing strategies, which has been super cool and super fun, and a dream like project client to work on being Danielle Laporte, who I've looked up to for literally 10 years. She's one of my favorite authors of all time. So it's been a dream to be on a part of the magic on her team and support and get hired to come in and be like, here's ideas. All right, let's implement them, which is really cool. And then what else have I been doing? Book marketing stuff here and there, as well as I've actually been taking a really big break from social media. And I think that's been really lovely. I barely go on and I've been barely posting. I thought about it because it was like, I think in the last 6 months, like I've barely really posted. And to be honest, I don't really miss it. I feel like my life is better when I spend less time on Instagram. And I don't know, it was just one of those things like I've stepped away from how I used to run my business in the past. And I feel like even today, like I still get people that just like message me asking to hire me or whatever. And I was like, whoa, wait a sec. I've like leaned into doing things how I really want to do it. it's not like anything really changed. And that was like a fun little experiment to be like, let me just see if I could stop doing social because I secretly hate it sometimes and take a break. And it's not like anything totally crashed and burned. And that's really nice to see.
Yeah, I took a month off of social media in July, and I have never had that long of an extended break from like posting on it for it's been like 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah.
And so I was definitely like a little nervous or like, okay, are my inquiries gonna like slow down? Is everything just gonna come to a screeching halt? Because that's what it feels like, right? If you haven't
Yes.
done it. And it was so interesting because like business kept on running, like nothing like
Mhm.
super huge changed or slowed
Yeah.
down. And so it was like very freeing to be like, okay, if I want to take a break, like I
Mhm.
can actually take a break. I feel like sometimes it just feels a little bit scary than when you actually go ahead and do it. And it's been something that I've been like considering again for this upcoming year, just because I definitely resonate with you in the sense that do I love social media? No. Do I do it because I run a business? Yes. But I don't feel like it's a zone of genius for me. You know what I mean? Like it's not
Mhm.
something that has been super fun or has come like
Mhm.
very easily and effortlessly.
Mhm.
And doesn't even feel like the best form of expression for me,
Mhm.
honestly.
Yeah.
Like I just
Same.
do a lot better like written content for email lists and stuff like that. And that's
Yeah.
just more enjoyable for me. So it's just
Same.
something that I've been considering. And I feel like you might have just given me a little bit of a nudge and push to be like, it's okay to take a step back. But I think that's also encouraging for other people to hear too. If they've been like, if I stop posting, everything is just going to stop running. I can tell you that's not true from my experience of it at all. So it's encouraging to hear that you've had a very similar experience too.
Yeah, the year it was 2020, at the start of the 2020 when I started pitching for the book before kind of the pandemic. I had this really, I'm really like closely tied to my intuition, and I teach a chapter on listening to your intuition inside the book because I think it's so important to listen to your like intuitive insights. Like it hit me out of the blue one day to unsubscribe from all business podcasts and stop reading business books and just trust my own intuition with my own stuff because I was so like, oh, I gotta do it like this, or I gotta do this, and I gotta have
Mhm.
this. And now I'm just like, I flow with my own intuition and I go off my ideas. And that always ends up working out great. If I had played more by the book, I would have never pitched for the book. Like, so many people were like,
Mm.
you have to build up writing expertise, writing for media outlets. And then
Mm.
you'll make sure you're written in like New York Times or Forbes and then go pitch for a book. Like there, and I'm like, no, I don't do that. This is my idea to flow with it and run with it now. I had that, and that's actually a great thing, and I don't miss it at all. Listening to all those business podcasts, I think there's a time and place, of course, to get advice and get support. But I used to be so like, oh, I gotta get out a podcast every week because so and so says I need to have a podcast every week, and it's been much more flowy over the last few years. I've been trying to like pivot and change and just like sort of listen to my intuition and be like, what do I feel called to create? And if I feel like the energy also transfers, like when I spend time making a fun reel, like I feel like the reel performs better, even though if it's like only one reel I'm making that month, or if it's just feeling called to do something that's maybe a little bit different. Or lately I've been rewriting all my welcome email sequences and all that kind of stuff and making my emails look prettier now with these new ConvertKit updates. And I was like, I'm doing it because it feels fun and I feel like intuitively called towards it. And I find that those outcomes always work out better in business when you're like leading from your heart and soul and like what feels fun versus like, I gotta do it like this. That's sort of like
Mhm.
old paradigm. How do you resonate with that? Do you feel like the same?
Yeah, so I was very much so take the strategy, implement it to the
Yeah,
T, run with it, like
me too.
amazing, great. I feel like as much as like my personality, I think lends for me to be able to do that and do that really well. Am I getting the outcomes
Yes.
that I necessarily want from it? No. Is it always super fun? Not necessarily. And so I'm leaning back into the same thing of there's so many business strategies that you could use in so many different areas of your business. There's so many different ways of running your business. And I think like over the past 2 years, I've just taken a step back and been like, what would I actually enjoy the process of doing? Yes, I have this
Yeah.
goal, but there's so many different ways of getting to this goal. What would feel good? And I think that's also
Yeah.
where for me, I'm like, debating stepping back from social media. It's because for such a long time it was the thing you should be doing, and that's why I was doing it. When
Yes.
it like for sure it works. Does it work for me as well as it works for somebody who loves showing up in that way? Definitely not. I think that like
Mhm.
me leaning more into serving my email list really well has worked really well because
Yeah.
I enjoy doing that. And so I feel like you're right. The energy definitely
Mhm.
does translate. And I think it's just an easier way to run your business if you can allow yourself the permission to not do what everyone else tells you should be doing, if that makes sense. It's like hard to block out the
100%.
noise and really trust yourself to do well with whatever it is that you are innately gifted at.
Yeah, I mean, it's like using your genius in your business too. It's like if you love writing and that's where you find your flow, do more writing. Spend the
Mhm.
time nurturing the email list or like writing blog posts. Or it's just it's where you love it. You know what I mean? And like spending time doing that and like aligning with those kinds of things because it's true. Like that stuff. I like a reel. I feel like the thing for me with Instagram, I think once reels started getting really popular and like people started making all those videos like how do I do reels, I was just like, wow, this is like, overwhelming. And there's so many things to know. And I don't know, I'm a little bit like when everybody goes right, I go left. And I feel like I've had a
Mhm.
lot of success from doing the opposite or doing the unconventional. But I also think it's just like listening to my own intuition or what feels right for me. Reels is not my strong suit. And I could spend an hour making a reel or I could spend an hour making a podcast interview, which I think would have more value. You know what I mean? Just giving updates or doing a podcast episode, it would just be able to help people more because it's more in line with like my own gifts of speaking or teaching or creating or connecting versus I gotta make this tiny 15-second thing.
I want to ask just for like people who are out there of how do you know what is like your intuition versus your fear holding you back from maybe something that is a good for you? Like, how do you make that distinction? Because I've definitely run into like, is this me just like shying away and playing small, or is this what my intuition is telling me to do? Do you have a way of like digging into that and deciphering that?
Yes. It's the last paragraph of the book where I talk about your freedom fear or your scary fear. So there's kind of two types of fear. Like your scary fear is like you're on a trail and you see the bear and you're like, I have to get that here. You're afraid and you got the fear because it's a genuinely bad situation, right? And that's not a time to master your mindset and overcome your fear. Like it's the time to get out. And then there's your freedom fear. It's like when you have an opportunity that sort of flings you out of the confines of your comfort zone.
Mm.
And I always say ask yourself, does this taste like fear or does this taste like freedom? Because there with the freedom fear, it's like there's an ounce of like freedom and openness and spaciousness and ooh, that's really cool. I mean, it's gonna scare you and it's gonna be terrifying because a part of you that's like that seems cool. That seems fun. There's a freedom and an expansion and that expansive quality to it. That's how I've always been able to differentiate the two. It's like, does this taste like fear or does this taste like freedom?
I love that like question.
Mm.
I at the beginning of 20 was it 2022 or 2021? I don't even remember now. I had a huge opportunity come into my inbox. It was like a dream client that I never in a million years thought I would be able to work with. And I almost said no because I was like, this is going to be a lot of logistics. It was just me being scared to step into the potential of it actually like working out and going well because I was just, what if all of these things go wrong and I don't do so well and I'm going to disappoint? But the opportunity itself was very expansive and cool. It was just like as soon as that hits, you have like yourself like trying to keep you in your comfort zone where you know everything is going to work out perfectly well because of XYZ. And I think it's just like forcing yourself to take that leap and trust yourself that you would be able to handle something big and expansive that is a little bit more freedom filled. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you sharing that because like I totally resonate with that. I can think of opportunities in my life that I have passed on because I was just straight up scared when I should have taken them. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And I almost turned down the role with Danielle. When she offered it to me, I was like, I don't know. Maybe I should say no. And one of my close friends in my life is, you are self sabotaging, Kelly, and you need to say yes. And I was like, ooh, that's a good check in.
Yeah, I had somebody be like, "Hey, this is your dream opportunity. You should definitely take
Yeah.
it." Like, I know you and I know that like you're worried about things that are very logical to be worried about, but also you can trust yourself and do well with it too. Yeah. Yeah, I
Mhm.
just wanted to thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been such a great
Yeah.
episode. I feel like people are going to take a lot away from this one. But if they want to continue to follow with you online, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me at kellytrach.com and I spell my last name Trach. It's an H. You can find my book, P.S. Your Genius, at kellytrach.com/books. You'll see the links to everywhere books are sold in North America. Walmart, Target, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, Amazon. I read the audiobook. I got the pleasure of reading it myself. It was one of the things that I had said. I was like, I want to read this. I made that. It was like I followed up. I was like really firm about it. I was like, when I got my deal, I was like, I want to read it because I want nobody else is going to read it like me. If you are like audiobooks, there's an audio version, there's the e-version. But yeah, it's kellytrach.com and kellytrach.com/books. And I would love to be of service to you in any way I can.
Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time and coming on the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Manali. It was such a pleasure.
If you're loving this episode, I would love for you to swipe a page or two out of my free resources library. I have a free class all on the systems you need to quickly grow your photography business. I cover 3 key systems that you need in place to be able to grow your business and triple your wedding bookings and go full time in less than 1 year. I also have another freebie just for you. I am letting you swipe my booked wedding client questionnaire. Be sure to go to manaliphotography.com or see the show notes to grab either one of these 2 freebies, and I can't wait to see how it helps you grow your business.